You're listening to Stand Tall and Own It, the podcast for high-performing female leaders who are ready to make an impact by discovering the safety that comes from understanding their own value and exercising their own authority. I'm your host, Andrea Johnson, and I'm here to tell you it is time to just truly be you, my strong friend. It's time to stand tall and own it. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Stand Tall and Own It, the podcast where we equip purpose-driven women to lead with authenticity and impact. I'm your host, Andrea Johnson, the Intentional Optimist. I'm excited you're here today. We've got a great show. Now, my husband and I have been catching up on some streaming shows, while all of the playoffs are going on. Our teams weren't in them, so we've hopped over to Netflix and Apple and a couple other, Hulu and some places. But in particular, we've been binging The Morning Show on Apple TV+. Now, if you haven't watched it, it's quite a ride, covering the Me Too movement, the COVID pandemic, and beyond, all through the lens of a news outlet and their morning show team. Now, it's not necessarily an endorsement, but watching it has been an unexpected trip down memory lane for me. As the show revisits these significant events in our very recent history, I find myself reflecting on where I was and what I was doing during those times. And it's been a powerful reminder of some intense leadership situations that very much shaped my career, especially during the COVID pandemic. Now, you know by now that I'm a planner, and sometimes I plan things without even realizing it. It's just kind of how I'm wired. And when the pandemic hit, that natural inclination to plan allowed me to help my team transition off campus quickly and effectively. It would be nice if I could just put those two words together. That's very, very essential or effective, whatever. Anyway, I'm sure that you have your own memories of how leadership, whether at work, school, or in government, either rose to the occasion or fell short. But for me, being able to mobilize and equip my team swiftly was absolutely crucial. I stepped into some unexpected leadership roles during that time, not because I sought them out, but because I was prepared and I was asked. I had taken my own personal responsibilities very seriously. I had acted on them, and as a result, was ready when leadership was needed in a specific type of situation. Now, there's nothing more critical in leadership than the ability to take responsibility. And back in September 2022, I released an episode on this podcast called Personal Responsibility as Self-Care, where I discussed how embracing responsibility can actually prepare you for any leadership role while taking care of yourself in the process. Of course, you'll find the link in the show notes. And today, I want to build on that idea. We're going to explore how embracing your leadership responsibilities can be a powerful path to greater influence and effectiveness. Now let's look at starting with the foundations of responsibility. When we look at personal agency, as I did in the episode Personal Responsibility as Self-Care, we explored how personal agency is about recognizing that you are the one driving your actions and decisions. Some people will say, basically they'll say something like, nobody else is responsible for my life, right? You are the one driving all of your actions and decisions. But this sense of control and ownership over your life is vital for personal well-being and is equally crucial to effective leadership. This is not the first time that I've taken something that I said was a personal growth item and translated into what it means to be a good leader. We did that last week with reflection. Now, in leadership, personal agency plays a pivotal role. Owning your role means fully understanding and embracing your responsibilities, your decisions, their impacts, all of that. It's about acknowledging that you're steering that car, and with that comes the responsibility to act with intention, clarity, and purpose. Now, to go a little deeper, defining what leadership responsibility really means, at its core, it means owning your role as a leader involves being accountable for guiding your team, making strategic decisions, and fostering a positive and productive environment. Let me repeat that. At its core, owning your role as a leader involves being accountable for guiding your team, making strategic decisions, and fostering a positive and productive environment. It's about being that person that your team can rely on, someone who sets the tone and direction while also being adaptable and open to feedback. And I know that sounds like a lot and a big job, but it is crucial. And a crucial part of that, being able to do all of that, is setting boundaries, knowing where your responsibilities end end and where others begin. Clear boundaries help prevent you from taking on too much or stepping into areas that aren't yours to handle, staying in your lane, if you will. This clarity not only prevents burnout, but it also empowers your team members to own their roles and responsibilities. This fosters a sense of accountability across the board. So this is so important because when you follow your own leadership, this is so important because when you fully own your leadership responsibilities, you build confidence and integrity. Taking ownership means you're not just reacting to situations, like being on your heels instead of being on your toes, but you're actively shaping outcomes. This proactive stance boosts your confidence as a leader and builds trust with your team. It shows that you are dependable and committed to your role. And we've all been in that situation before where the, quote, leader is really just a spokesperson for the team. They don't have a vision. They're constantly kind of eating off everybody else's plates. My mother used to do that. As much as I love her, revere her, miss her desperately, she was always about and I don't know if this because we lived in Korea for so long where you kind of eat from communal bowls, but she would, if you ordered something and she ordered something else, she wanted to taste it. And sometimes she wouldn't ask. If you're in a situation with a leader that is consistently taking things off your plate or putting things on your plate that you didn't really want, and there's no clear lines or lanes for anybody to travel in, this can be catastrophic to team cohesion and, especially productivity. But embracing full responsibility is rarely easy. Common pitfalls, like regular things hurdles that people can't get over, are things like fear of failure, imposter syndrome. Even the overwhelming nature of leadership can just make it tempting to shy away from that full accountability. Some leaders might avoid responsibility to protect themselves from criticism or because they just doubt their own abilities. But avoiding responsibility only undermines leadership effectiveness and confidence, both for you and in your team. And by understanding these foundations of personal agency, clear boundaries, and embracing responsibility, you set yourself up for greater leadership success. These elements empower you to navigate challenges with confidence, foster a culture of accountability, and lead with integrity and purpose. So let's look at how fully embracing your leadership role and taking responsibility creates a powerful connection to building confidence. Because not just in you, right? It's not just your confidence you're building, but it fosters trust within your team. Now, when you take ownership of your role, it's about more than just fulfilling your duties, right? It's more than just what's on your job description. It's about actively shaping outcomes and being intentional with your actions. This sense of responsibility naturally leads to increased confidence. Why? Because you're not passively reacting to situations. You're taking charge. You're making decisions. You're steering your own team towards success. Remember, you're the one with the steering wheel in your hand. This proactive approach reassures you of your capabilities and strengthens your leadership presence. Side note, this is straight out of the 6 tenets of intentional optimism, the tenet of optimistic. Being proactive just makes the journey easier. It allows you to promote unity of vision and mission, enabling you to walk into any situation with your eyes wide open. But this confidence isn't just about your self-perception. It's also reflected in how your team views you. A leader who takes responsibility inspires trust. I have personal experience in this area. It might be tough, but when you take responsibility, not just for your role, but for the guidance and direction of the team, it always matters. Your team sees that you're committed and reliable, which encourages them to feel secure under your leadership. This trust then fosters a supportive environment where collaboration and open communication can thrive, making the entire team stronger and more cohesive. Embracing your responsibilities also deepens your understanding of your strengths and areas where you can grow. Each experience, whether successful or challenging, becomes a stepping stone for refining your leadership approach. This ongoing learning and adaptation process not only enhances your skills, but reinforces your confidence because you're drawing from real hands-on experiences. I am that person. My mom used to ask me, Andrea, do you have to experience everything for yourself? And I'd be like, well, yeah, I kind of do. And as I've matured, I've learned to And I've developed the ability to learn from other people's actions and mistakes or whatever, but many times I just had to go through it myself. Some of the best experiences, or actually the best leadership lessons I have learned, have been from some really, really hard experiences. And to illustrate this, going back to my earlier example of leading my team through the COVID pandemic, not that I did everything perfectly, but I still took full responsibility for my team's direction. The decisive actions and accountability I demonstrated not only resolved the immediate issue of getting them all off grounds with the ability to do their work in a way that met all the guidelines that we needed, and they had everything they needed to do it. They knew what they were responsible for. They knew what their actions needed to be, how they needed to check in, how they needed to communicate with people. So all of that, those decisive actions resolved that immediate stuff, but it also left a lasting impact on the team dynamics. This experience, along with other moments where taking responsibility was both very daunting and transformative, helped me focus on what I could control and fully own my role. Because if you're anything like I was, there were plenty of things I had responsibility for, but no authority to do, right? So I knew what I could control in my role. As a result, I built such trust in my team that even when I had to deliver very difficult news, like rolling layoffs, they trusted me. And I never want to deliver that kind of news ever again. But they knew I wasn't sugarcoating anything. They knew I had advocated for them and would continue to do so as we move forward. Navigating those challenges grew our confidence, not just mine, but ours, and it empowered my team to take ownership of their roles, reinforcing the critical link between responsibility and confidence in leadership. However, it is important to acknowledge those common hurdles in embracing full responsibility. That fear of failure, self-doubt, or imposter syndrome can make it tempting to shy away from accountability. Yet it's through facing these fears and viewing mistakes as learning opportunities that true growth and resilience are cultivated. I've often shared when I'm interviewed by other people that I had a team member that I just did not click with. And I was new to the team. It was just my second big supervisory role. And by the time she retired and we had an exit interview, I realized I had really messed up. And I asked her point blank, because we did it, an exit interview, like with me and my boss and her. And I said, I realize now that I should have sat with you and learned your job. Would that have helped? And she said, oh my gosh, yes, it really would have. Because she had a very unique kind of situation that she was working in. And that lesson changed the way I moved forward and taking account. It didn't truly repair our relationship, but it went a long way to making it not this completely antagonistic relationship for the rest of our knowing each other, right? This responsibility, confidence connection, right? It built confidence in me that I could actually do something new, is a cornerstone of effective leadership. By owning your role and taking responsibility, you not only boost your confidence, but also build a foundation of trust and accountability within your team, setting the stage for personal growth for you and your team, for team cohesion and long-term success. Now, I can't just spit things at you without giving you some practical steps. So just knowing isn't always enough. You need to actively engage with it in a way that promotes growth, confidence, and effectiveness. You need to be able to assimilate the information into action. This is what I do in our Live to Lead conferences. We do a video, we do an assimilation activity to help further help you apply that information. This is what I just had a discovery call this morning in which we discussed how we would do a disc workshop. And as well, you do an activity, you learn, then I do a little teaching, and then we do another activity to help reinforce that so that when you're done, if you do it in real time, you walk out of there with a lot of that information already assimilated and kind of incorporated into the way you think. So for you, here are some practical steps. The first one is what I call a responsibility inventory. It is not a handout. There's no downloads. This is just something that you can do. And that's where I like to begin. Now, just as we did with personal issues in that earlier episode, I think it's episode 103. It's in the show notes, but talking about personal responsibility as self-care, taking a moment to reflect on your leadership role is very important. Now, this could include looking at your job description, your mission or vision statement, but it will also include all that fine print, like I got the air quotes going here, you know, the and other duties as assigned, the things that they ask you to do in your role. It will also include things that enable you to do your work that are assumed or maybe that are prerequisites. But start by writing down all of your key responsibilities, everything from strategic planning and team management to setting the tone for your particular organization. I did this multiple times throughout my entire career with both my supervisors as well as my team. And I do this with many of my coaching clients, especially the ones who manage, or especially the ones who are new managers to teams. This exercise helps bring clarity and awareness to exactly what your leadership obligations are and what belong to another leader or to your team, right? So do this responsibility inventory. Just write it all down, kind of figure out what you got, use somebody as a sounding board to make sure that you kind of know what all of your responsibilities are. That's why I did it with my direct supervisors. It really helped me. There were times that we literally made a matrix depending on where we were in our journey. Like there were a couple of transition times where we actually had 3 people on the matrix. And my boss would handle certain things and I would handle certain things and this other person would handle certain things. Knowing what those responsibilities are means nothing falls through the cracks, but it also means that it's easy to be held accountable because you know what they are, right? So it's not like you're being held accountable for something you didn't know about. Now, once you've identified those responsibilities, it's time to create a little action plan. Start by prioritizing these responsibilities. Which ones need immediate attention? Which ones can be delegated? You can outline specific steps that you can then take to address each responsibility effectively. This is such an important piece to doing this work. Knowing what they are is great, but knowing how you're going to accomplish them is totally different. This is going to incorporate some goals. This is going to incorporate some vision and maybe even like some sub-goals, some yearly goals and some sub-goals that are going to get you to that yearly goal. For example, if one of your responsibilities is improving team communication, your action plan might include scheduling regular one-on-ones, maybe implementing a feedback system or organizing team building activities. And remember, the other thing you could do is DISC workshops or understand DISC for each of your team members, right? That's just something that I can't believe I didn't think about throwing that in there until just now. Remember, it's okay to seek help or resources. Just those are extremely important, especially when they're needed, because leadership is not a solo journey. And asking for help doesn't mean you aren't taking responsibility. It means you're taking responsibility for the entire project or situation, and you're doing it in an effective way. Now, to help manage and prioritize these responsibilities, I recommend using some tools like journaling or task management systems. Journaling can provide insights into your leadership journey, helping you track progress, reflect on changes, and celebrate successes. The last episode was all about effective reflection and the effect that it has on your leadership journey, and journaling is one of the best ways to document that reflection. When I sit down each week, I do the whole what did I accomplish? So what are my wins and what could I do better? And then I look at what I'm going to do for the next week. And being able to incorporate my goals and even just my weekly, my quarterly, or my yearly goals into that process really matters. And it helps me to stay on task, or it helps me remember what I'm responsible for. Now, talking about journaling, if you don't consider yourself a journaler, that's okay. This isn't a Dear Diary kind of journaling. I actually had one client who pretty much said, nope, I don't have a journal. I won't have a journal. I'm not a journaler. So I just pressed a little bit and I said, is it acceptable to just have a spiral bound notebook in which you take notes and do your homework? And she said, oh, sure, I can do that. And voila, she became a journaler. What's so funny is she started bringing that to every single meeting, and finally she just wrote journal on the front of it. Okay. Another client went out specifically and purchased something really pretty. She purchased a pretty new notebook in which to do her notes and self-reflection as part of our core values coaching. And I was just listening to Greg McKeon on his podcast. He's the author of Essentialism. And I was listening to him, and he said that he started out with just a single sentence at the end of every day. And that was all that he could do. And he's managed to keep that going for nearly 10 years. It can be that simple. And he actually started keeping his journal, if you will, in a specific place so that as he was going through his bedtime routine, he just knew he was going to write his one sentence. I personally have a small, a lot of people keep gratitude journals or blessing journals. I actually have a really, really skinny one that a friend gave me that has flamingos all over it, and it's really pretty. And I thought, I want to use this for something that's really long term. And so I call it some people might call it a blessing journal, but I call it God's acts of loving kindness towards me, ways in which I have been blessed. And it might be a revelation that comes upon me. It might be an insight. It might be a windfall, or a way I've interacted with a friend or my family member, or just anything, like even my health or good sleep. And what happens is I put something in there about every 2-3 weeks. That journal, even though it's little bitty tiny, is going to last me a long time, right? So it doesn't have to be a lot, but when you do something, you have a record. I do a different journal that I do in the mornings that helps me with when I'm doing my Bible study, whatever you do for like your morning meditation or any morning exercises that you have. And as I was flipping through at the end of the year, I just was kind of looking through my last year's one as I was kind of wrapping up the 2024, and I was surprised. It's like, oh, this one thing happened that far away. It feels like it happened yesterday. It was a traumatic experience. And then there were other things that I had just decided that I felt like I had decided last year, or like in January. So it's really important to help keep your perspective in a good place, and journaling will help you do that. Now, other tools like Trello or Asana, like these task management systems, or even a simple to-do list, I use Microsoft's to-do app, can keep you organized and focused on your action plan. They give you the opportunity to record things once, move them around, categorize them, or even assign them to a team member. You can do them on your phone, you can do them on your computer. And there have been times throughout the production of this podcast that my producer and I, and for a little while, part-time assistant, used Trello to make sure that we were doing everything we wanted to do for each episode. Responsibilities were assigned and things moved along fairly well. I would check off my things and I'd move the card, and my producer would check off her things and move the card, and the assistant would do her pieces of social media and she would move the card, and then we would be done. And we don't use that anymore because now it's just the two of us again, and we've really got the system down. But having something like that can really matter. I know I left research administration in the university system, and many times they'll use that for the Trello system for moving applications through the system, or grant applications or contracts through the system to make sure everything gets checked off. So maybe that's something that works for you. Now, again, I just use, and I'm not putting any of these in the show notes. You can Google them because, I would put links for everything if I had to, or if I could. But I use the Microsoft To-Do app. I have lists in there. It's like having a grocery list. I actually have a grocery list that I can share with my husband. I have lists for Christmas ideas, but then I have my own personal lists of personal care, business stuff, podcast stuff. That's where I keep all of my to-dos, and I can assign dates on them, and it just really helps me keep everything organized. I found after all these years, that's the thing that works best for me. So maybe a task management system could work for you. Additionally, you could consider seeking out a coach or a mentor. Sometimes an external perspective, just a sounding board, can offer invaluable guidance and accountability, helping you stay really aligned with your goals. I've forgotten the exact statistic, but when you write down your goals, you are like 40-something% more, in the 40% range, more likely to accomplish them. When you engage with like an accountability partner or a coach or just even a mentor, somebody that's going to help ask you about them or give you some guidance in them, you're like in the 90 percentile range of accomplishing those goals. So if you want guidance and accountability, having an accountability partner or coach or something is really, really a good idea. And this is what I do with executive coaching, DISC coaching, and core values coaching. Based on what you need, we map out a plan and I help you execute it personally or even for your team. Now, let me bring this home on a personal and timely note. I'm recording this episode on January 21st of 2025. Less than 30 days ago, I finalized my goals for 2025, my responsibilities within those goals, and my plans around them. As part of it, I had to narrow down what my own responsibilities were and are in my current role. I have no job description to speak of, and as the owner of my company, I have no boss. Therefore, my responsibilities are built around my mission and vision and how I want to show up for my clients. So it took me until this past weekend, though, like on the 19th, to finally transfer all that mental work that I had done on the computer through conversations with ChatGPT, etc., into my planner, which is mostly of the handwritten form, in order to finalize and put all my plans into action, right? But I was very struck by how quickly I could forget some of the things that I had decided were or were not my responsibility and what I would do about them, which led to a very clear resolve to continue my regular reflection on those things throughout the year. The confidence of achieving those goals has been renewed, like even just in 25 days from creating those goals, I had lost confidence. Isn't that amazing? Because I just wasn't staying accountable about them and I hadn't taken responsibility for them. But just the confidence in achieving those goals had been renewed just through the review and reflection of them. Now I know how to keep them forefront as I move forward. And I've been doing this a long time, y'all. So don't feel like you have to get it right every time, and don't feel like there's no hope for you. I've been doing this a long time and I'm learning continually. And even if I'm only leading myself, I have so much more confidence in my leadership abilities when it comes to working with my clients, and even as I share things here with you. This structured approach, starting with identifying responsibilities, creating an actionable plan, and leveraging tools and resources, empowers you to own your leadership role with clarity and confidence. By embracing each of these steps, you'll find yourself better equipped to handle the challenges, inspire your team, and foster a culture of accountability and growth. Now, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a few exciting opportunities that can still be purchased, that can still work for you to further support your leadership journey. Until February 28th of 2025, we are still in Live to Lead season. We have on-demand access, and if you have the chance to access this invaluable content, there's no reason not to, and we do this through what we call Leader Pass. This offers you 5 days of virtual access to Live to Lead 2024, featuring 8 incredible speakers, including John Maxwell, Shantae Lowe, and Malcolm Gladwell. Additionally, you'll get bonus access to 9 past speakers like Marcus Buckingham and Jamie Kern-Lima. All of this is available for just $79, which is a remarkable value for such inspiring content. Check the link in the show notes to get started. And remember, for organizations of 75 or more people, we do offer corporate licensing with custom branding, extended watch windows, like more than 5 days, and a dedicated portal for your team. These opportunities are available only through February 28, 2025, so don't miss out. The other thing I want to share with you, this second offer, is my Core Values Coaching Program, currently, again, in beta. This combines my Core Values digital course with 6 one-on-one coaching sessions to help you deeply explore and integrate your core values into your life. Remember earlier when I talked about incorporating and assimilating all of what you're learning? That's what we do in this coaching program. I'm accepting 10 beta participants at a significant discount, and I already have several in the pipeline. So if you're ready to do the work on a structured, thoughtful way, now is the time to experience the program before it becomes one of my signature offers. If either of these opportunities resonates with you, don't wait. Check the show notes for details and links, or reach out to me directly. You can DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn at The Intentional Optimist, or email me at andrea@theintentionaloptimist.com and set up a discovery call. Let's take the next step in your growth and leadership journey. Now, in next week's episode, we're going to explore how to lead with confidence even when you're not sure. Self-doubt, one of those hurdles, one of those things that were really hard to overcome in the accountability area, is what we're going to talk about. And I'm excited to dive into this topic with insights and practical advice, addressing some of the most pressing questions I've received from clients and listeners. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is truly a privilege to be in your ears or be on the video with you here. Don't forget to check the show notes for all the resources mentioned, because, my friend, it is time to stand tall and own your responsibility as a leader. Because the world needs more curious, welcoming, and wise leaders who understand their core values, recognize their strengths, and live by a clear set of life principles. And that is you, my friend. Until next time,